Hey, this is Trevor Sternad from the Black Dahlia Murder here, and you're listening to the Everblack podcast.
Hey, humans, Carl, this is Odorous from Quad.
I'm going to the Fear Factory.
This is George Court from Fisher.
This is Jazz from Double Drop.
This is Wade from Our Last Enemy.
Mike Nick from Suicidal Tendencies.
Hey, this is Wednesday 13.
This is
Rex from Cadaver
This is Dirk from Sepultura. You're listening to Everblack Podcast.
Before we go into this episode of the Everblack Podcast, we just need to give a shout out to our show supporters, the occult clothing brand Electric Witch, who have amazing apparel from shirts to hoodies to hats to beanies, dresses and more. Check out their full range at electricwitch.com.au and put in the code Everblack for 20% off your order. This episode's interview also appeared on The Faction, Australia's best 24/7 heavy music streaming radio station. Tune in now through the Faction app, available in the Apple and Android app stores, and iHeartRadio.com.au. Also, don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the Everblack podcast on Spotify and iTunes podcast streams, and see all our video interviews on the Everblack YouTube channel. You can also read all our articles and reviews at everblack.com.au. All right, on with the show. Thanks for joining us on the show, brother. How's everything going over in your world?
Doing well, man. You know, just trying my best to stay busy and keep afloat during this unique time, shall I say?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Very crazy.
It is. We were supposed to be on tour, a good portion of the year this year, and with Megadeth, and obviously, just like pretty much all other bands, none of that is happening. So it's improvising and, maybe a good time to get some other projects completed or started at least, so that's kind of what I'm doing. That's my state of mind.
Oh man, you've been pretty busy with heaps of stuff, including the new Cadaver, Edder Bile, which comes out on November 27th through Nuclear Blast. And this album is so killer, dude. Like, this is your first record with Anders, and you guys have such a great musical chemistry, and it's brought Cadaver back in such a big, bad way, man. It's darker, it's heavier, it's unreal, man. So, I mean, you only met a few years ago, though, right?
Yeah, we met actually in 2014. I was asked to fill in, Satir kind of contacted me, and we both know Victor Brand had given me his number, and he just asked me to fill in for a couple of shows, and so that all happened kind of at short notice, and I didn't know at the time, actually. I wasn't fully aware that Anders was playing with Satyricon too. He's been their bass player for many years, and so when we're there finally playing those shows, I was like, wait, you're Anders Odden from Cadaver? I love Cadaver, so I just kind of started talking, and next thing you know, he's playing me some demos he's had laying around. He's like, look, I got these tracks, like, you want to hear them? I'm like, yeah, man. So, from there, it just came the idea of like, hey, why not revive the band? We'll just do it whenever we have time. There was no pressure or anything, or, it was a very organic process and a ton of fun. I'm glad you think there's a good chemistry, because we think so too. It just kind of flowed, we just naturally worked together well.
Isn't that unreal, dude? I mean, you're obviously growing up, you're a fan, and now you're like jamming. I mean, you're jamming with a lot of your heroes, man. I mean, you're living the dream, bro.
Oh, yeah. Crazy. I mean, that's only at age 16 or 15 that I'd be playing with all these people. I'd be like, what are you talking about, man? It's like, it's just, it's such a great community, the metal world. It really is.
Yeah,
a lot of the people
absolutely.
that I look up to, that I've been able to meet, almost all of them, maybe even all of them, are just cool, down to earth people that I connect with in some way or another, and they just become friends. Same thing with Anders. I would say he's my friend first and foremost, and then on top of that, we now make music together. But he's just such a cool guy, and his music inspired me a lot. The first Cadaver album really had a huge impact on me, and I followed them for years, even saw them live in the Cadaver Inc. era.
Oh, wow.
And so, I've always followed them, and so, now to be able to just work with him is so cool, man.
That is awesome, dude. That's so good. And I love how disgusting and brutal this album is. Like, it's darker, heavier, and you've taken it in such a dark direction. I love it so much, man. Where was that something you guys went, we got to take it into those places, or was it just a natural progression?
I would say it was a natural progression. I think Anders just had a lot, that he needed to get out. And he has sometimes a kind of a funny nihilistic approach to stuff, kind of like fuck everything kind of approach, which I can relate to. I think it's sometimes that's what you need, sometimes you just gotta be like, fuck everything. So there's that, obviously with the DJAF EP, like kind of, that's the whole statement. But no, it just kind of happened, man. I would say the thing that I really insisted on was to keep it old school and to keep it raw. I didn't want it to be one of those clean, polished productions, because that's just not what Cadaver is to me. If you look at all the albums, none of them is very clean. None of them is very polished. It's usually just, 3 or 4 guys playing together and just making a bunch of noise. And that's kind of what I wanted, So the process of recording the album and even making the album was done with that in mind. So like we recorded most of the songs without click. We played together versus just me on drums to some scratch guitars and then him coming in, It was literally us in the same room, and also our engineer, producer, Edder Bile in the same room, just playing together, and I think you can really hear that on the album, like just the energy that's happening, which to me is such a magical thing in music in general, but especially in death metal. When you listen to all the classic records, there's an energy there that's hard to pinpoint what it is, but a lot of times it's because of the interaction between people that happens in the moment, right? That's what I've learned over the years. So I'm really glad we got to get that out.
Oh man, yeah, and it doesn't sound. You're talking about like the sound of it. It doesn't. It's not polished, but it doesn't sound bad, man. Like I can turn it up in my car on the way to work, and it doesn't like sound bad. It sounds amazing. Like you've got that balance, which is not easy to do.
It isn't, and we had a lot of talks about it. Also with Adair, the producer, and he was more used to seeing the way records are produced now. So he had to kind of experiment a little bit and try some different things. But I think he's a genius, so it worked out really well. But that's the thing: sounding raw and brutal and organic doesn't mean sounding bad per se. I think back in the day, the thing is that there wasn't really a template. There was no blueprint for how do you produce a death metal or a grindcore record or a black metal record. It's kind of like everybody was just trying stuff, and sometimes with good results, sometimes not so good. But in the end, for me, that's part of the charm. Like, I don't want my album to sound like the other album with the same presets and the same this and the same that. So you got to push the boundaries a little bit. And in this case, kind of taking Adair, who's more used to producing in a modern way, and kind of pushing him to like, dude, just, let's do all real drums, no triggers, no click track, just let it work. Let's figure it out, And it's more work for all of us, it was, but in the end, I think it's really what Cadaver stands for. So that's why for me, it was so important to kind of follow that direction from the get-go. And I had to insist with the guys to no click track, Everybody, I work with a click track like 99% of the time. It's what you do, now it's like, it's easier. Everything's lined up. You can move stuff. You can, I was like, no. And they were like, are you sure? It's going to be a lot more work. I'm like, yeah, I know, but no. I think it's cool because, the music ebbs and flows in a way that it doesn't when you play to a click.
That's it. And it sounds really honest, and I love that. Are you jamming on like old Cadaver stuff as well?
Yeah, I played one show with the band last year. So we recorded the album early 2019, and then we did another session a few months later after that for a few more songs that ended up on some on the record, some on the EP. But then in I think it was September 1st or August 31st, I can't remember. Anyway, late summer last year, we did a show in Norway, and so that was like an hour-long show. So yeah, we played a bunch of stuff from. We didn't play anything off of Necrosis directly, but we did, yeah. So yeah, songs from every album basically. So yeah, so I got to play a lot of the old stuff. Obviously a lot of stuff from the first record, and yeah, it was fun.
That's sick. That's awesome. Well, of course, I mean, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, bro. Like,
Nice.
You followed your career, and you've played with some of my favorite bands, like and musicians like Devon and Soilwork. I see a little Soilwork sound in the back there.
Yeah.
It's been such a jam-packed career you've had. Who's been the most physically demanding band to play with? Which, I should say.
Great question, man. Oh man. I mean, Soilwork was pretty tough towards the end because I started to have more free reign of pushing the tempos and stuff, and so there's some really fast stuff on like the Living Infinite and the Ride Majestic that was definitely challenging for me to I grew a lot as a drummer, like playing that stuff live night after night. We would do these grueling tours with 51 shows in 54 days kind of thing with like no rest, and just at the end of that you're just completely spent mentally and physically, so it was tough. But I mean, there's been a lot. I think actually the single most band that I learned the most from, like on a purely physical level of drumming, is a death metal band I played with back when I lived in France. So this was like late 90s, early 2000s, a band called Mortuary. They're still around today.
Yes.
They're a great band.
Are you there? I think you're frozen up, bro.
Can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah. You went all frozen up.
Oh, sorry about that.
And then, no, that's all right. As I said, that's what happens, man. We're close to the end of the world here. So, that's awesome.
Where'd
man.
I cut off?
And of course, you joined Megadeth, man, which is such a massive, massive thing. How did that come about? Join their ranks?
Well, I was on tour with Soilwork, and I got a notification, a call from the Megadeth camp that Dave Mustaine wanted to talk to me, and so a few days later I was on the phone. I mean, you can imagine my surprise, of course, like, wait, who, what,
Yeah.
So a few days later I was on the phone with him, and basically, we talked a little bit, asked me some questions, and he said, look, we just need somebody to fill in for us. Can you do it? I'm like, yeah, So I did, and basically I came home from that Soilwork tour, spent 10 days learning Megadeth songs, and next thing you know, we're playing. So it was kind of like out of nowhere.
Man, that's crazy. I'm Rust in Peace for me was like, that was my way in, man. That was the album that opened the doors, man. So and
Incredible.
yeah. So how is it working with Dave? I mean, you're making a new Megadeth album at the moment. I hear. Is that correct?
Yes. It's been great, man. I mean, I got the privilege to spend a lot of time with the band on the road the past 4 years. We did a lot of touring, 2016 through 2018. So I really got to know the guys, know what works and doesn't, know all the different, every drummer contributed to every song, because I got over time, in the beginning, of course, I didn't have much time to really get to the finite details of some of the stuff. But over time, I really got in depth with all the drum parts, like Carl Samuelson's stuff is pretty intricate. So I really got to absorb all that and play it live, and and Dave would throw in things in the set list sometimes, like, oh, okay, now we're doing this, all right. So just kind of seeing how it works, right? So when it comes to making the record, I think it was such a good thing to have that experience and to be able to put all that together, mixed in with my own feel and my own influences, and just kind of, I think you're going to hear that on the album. There's some of all the big eras of Megadeth are in some way or another on drums, I believe. So.
That's awesome. How does Dave? I can imagine Dave being someone that would really push you to do your best too.
Oh yeah, I mean he's super cool to work with, man. I gotta say, he still gets that youthful excitement when something's cool, when he likes like a riff or a drum fill or whatever it is, and so of course you feed off of that, and so when I actually went in to record drums together with David Ellison doing bass, it was late May, early June this year. And Dave was, of course, there the whole time. And so there was a really good energy happening. It was really productive. We experimented some, tried some different things. Didn't always work out, but, he really encouraged us to just do what we do, and trust us with the parts. And I mean, we all wrote stuff for the record. Like I wrote a song, and some other riffs because I play guitar too. Yeah. So some of that stuff ended up being recorded. I don't know what will be on the album or not, but there's, there are a lot of cool things happening. So I really felt like it was a fun and creatively like interesting process for sure.
Oh man, that's awesome. I mean, and also playing the Nick Menza stuff would be pretty special too. I mean, he was like one of my favorite drummers. So
yeah, I mean, he had a sound and a technique all his own, you know, and just instantly recognizable approach to drumming. And it was crazy, actually, because I played that first show with him, I believe it was in May of 2016. And I think it was that same night. I believe it was the same night of the first show. I'm not 100% on that, but I get a text message all of a sudden of a friend of mine like, dude, did you see Nick Menza just died? So, like, literally, as I started playing with the band, here in LA where I live, he was playing at the Big Potato, this small club, and that's when he, you know, died, basically playing drums. And so it was such a shock, and of course Dave and David especially were incredibly affected by it. And, you know, we did moments of silence on all the next shows for Nick, and kind of Dave talked about it and stuff. But yeah, man, I mean, it was just this crazy coincidence, but sorry about the noise.
That's all right, man.
Sorry about that. Some grindcore happening here outside. But no, I mean, Nick was also a huge influence of mine. My first album was Pete Wells, but I did get to see the band for Rust in Peace on the Clash of the Titans tour. That was actually only the third concert I ever went to, you know, as a teenager. And so, of course, you know, I got to honor that, you know, and anything I do with Megadeth is kind of in honor of those things, because they built Megadeth. You know, Nick was a part of building the Megadeth sound, as have been all the people that came before me. So I respect that immensely.
That's awesome, dude. You're doing an awesome job, brother. I got to tell you that. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, man. Tell us about Bent C. I've just checked that out.
Yeah.
Just stumbled, man, dude. You got Thomas Lindbergh. You got like all these cool cats. Man, what is that little project?
Well, so I'll tell you. So Bent C kind of, you know, I've always written music. I was telling you earlier, I play guitar, but I never really considered myself a guitar player, because I'm really a drummer, you know. So I just kind of tried to bring ideas, but I never felt that confident about my guitar playing, because I was always playing with like Sylvain, Patrick Inscarve, or like, you know, Peter and like all the guys in Soilwork that are just like such amazing guitarists. So I was also, I have this idea and kind of feeling like, you know, I'm shitty about even presenting it, because I'm like, I suck compared to these guys, that kind of thing. But my wife always encouraged me. She's like, make your own music, do your own stuff. You can do it, you know? So eventually I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I just sat down behind the drum, started recording stuff, and it turned out to be grindcore, because I love grindcore, and that became Bent C, right? So it's always been this very spontaneous, organic process with no real plan. And over the years, of course, doing a lot of it in my free time, you know, I became a little bit of a better guitar player. I respect the instrument, you know, I got better at it. And yeah, man, I've really been on a roll. I mean, we have a full-length album coming that's completely separate from the Instagrind songs you mentioned. That's kind of a thing I've just been doing during the quarantine, and inviting some people I love jamming with to be a part of it. You know, like, there's way more coming, by the way. We got a ton of songs with a ton of people, you know. So, but Thomas and Athanar from Midnight, those are all, you know, like Jesper from Nasum. I mean, those are all guys I look up to and that are, you know, now friends of mine. So it was really cool to do stuff with them. But yeah, it's my musical outlet. It's stuff I'm really proud of. It's my way of expressing myself on drums and guitar, and just, you know, Shane Embry of Napalm Death is the bass player generally, like, he plays on the album. He's a person that's, you know, such a cool guy, such a kind guy, and just a huge influence of mine since I was a kid. So it's just, you know, it's exciting to be able to do stuff like that. That's what I live for. You know?
Dude, so good. Sign me up. Sign me up. I love it. It's so good. And of course, hopefully when everything calms down, you know, will we see you come back down here to Australia? You know, maybe bring Cadaver finally down to see us, you know? Come on, man.
It'll be great, man. I can't wait to come back. You know, it's been a long time. I mean, Megadeth had already done Australian shows when I started playing with them, so I kind of missed out on that whole leg. But I hope we'll be down there soon. I don't know. Of course, Megadeth is the priority when it comes to me playing live, and so anything else is kind of like cherry on the cake. I don't know how much I'll get to play with Cadaver, you know, besides the one show we did last year. Anders has a drummer for that can do the touring if I can't, which more likely than not I can't. But because, you know, when this opens up, when COVID kind of hopefully becomes less of a, you know, immediate issue as it is now, and kind of becomes under control, you bet that like every single band on the face of this earth is going to have, you know, a year-long tour plan. So
it's going to be the best thing in the world, man. It's going to be the greatest. The floodgates are going to open, and just Just bring it. All the metal. I need it.
Yeah, there should be like a month-long festival, It's just like every single metal band, like every single day there's like 10 bands, and then, it just goes on and on until people are just completely exhausted. Like,
Yeah, man, we'll just be sitting in deck chairs with our beers.
Exactly.
Man, it's going to be the best thing in the world. I can't wait.
How it's meant to be, right? Yeah.
That's right, man. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Well, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you on the show tonight, and all the best to you and all the boys you're jamming with. Of course, Edder and Bile, the new Cadaver album, comes out on November 27. We'll have the links all here. Go pre-order it now, and we will see you hopefully soon, bro.
Very soon, I hope. Thanks for the interview, Nev. It was great to talk to you, man.
You too, man. Enjoy your day, bro.
You
See
too.
you soon.
Cheers. Take care.